this is a fabulous wedding in 4 weeks. Now 3 weeks.
And the countdown has started.
Wow, it's just, and I can't believe we're doing this. And it seems to be working.
Yes.
All right. So, all right. So today, Danielle, maybe you could start off by telling us a little bit about what you know that we're going to be talking about today. And of course, we'll be veering off in various directions. But
yes.
I know that we're going to be talking about the venue, but there's some other things that you guys have been working on. So
correct.
Before we show off the venue, you want to bring us up to speed on anything?
Well, I think the biggest thing for us this week was the venue, because we felt like we couldn't move forward with a lot of the other things without knowing where the venue was going to be, what it was going to look like inside, what it was going to hold. You know, can we have a band in there? What are the acoustics like? What's the lighting like? What kind of design can we come up with? What kind of tables can we fit in here? You know, what's it like outside? Do we need valet? You know, there's so many things that depend on even the style of the dress. You know, if all of a sudden we're out in the middle of a prairie, do we want her in a ball gown? You know, so all those things really, the venue is key in all the design elements and really touches on all the different things. So that was a big deal this week, is just getting that accomplished. So I, for one, am very relieved. I think we all are, that we have found a spot that we love and that has, you know, kind of the things that we were looking for, and we'll go over that in a little bit. But I'm very excited about it.
Well, you know, that sounds like a perfect segue, and I bet people are pretty curious as to what we ended up deciding on. Because last week we mentioned we had our emergency backup planned, and we made kind of an impassioned plea that if someone had a really cool space in Seattle, now is the time to speak up. And Chase Jarvis stepped in, called on a few contacts, and and I'm not sure what people online are going to think when they see the space in the video, but I'll tell you what, on August 27th, I believe it's going to be really, really, really cool. So
I agree.
Let's
hope.
Imagination. Lots of imagination when you see this.
Yeah, it's open-minded.
So the venue is a chocolate factory. It's actually the back room in a historic building in Fremont, Theo Chocolate. The back room of that chocolate factory is used for all sorts of community events, from trapeze arts to the Moisture Festival to all sorts of things. And basically, let's show you a little video kind of walking you through what's going on here.
I've looked at this space with deep passion for a long time.
Yeah, it's awesome.
And
we
talked. You know, I've talked to Joe at length about how I might be able to use this space. Can we make it a big studio? Can we have events here or whatever? One of the projects that I'm a partner in with my good buddy Craig is this thing called creativeLIVE, which is worldwide live free creative education. We decided to do a course for wedding photographers. It's a huge industry, and there's a lot of people who want to do it. We reached out to a famous wedding photographer named Jasmine Star, who's doing the event, and we said, hey, we want to do this, and we actually want to do a live wedding. The main venue is arguably the most important part of it. We immediately thought how cool this space is.
Yeah.
And so I was literally sitting in a menu, hey, Joe, how's it going? Yeah. I gotta throw something right at you. This is really interesting to me. He said, well, that sounds great, but I got this food bloggers conference with Foodista going on that weekend. And I said, oh, wow, because someone from Foodista had reached out to try and connect with what it is that I'm doing. They're bringing in 250 food people from all over the world. Why don't you say a little bit what you...
So Foodista.com is an online cooking encyclopedia, and one of the audiences that we've connected with are food bloggers, and this is kind of a phenomenon that's just exploded. And last year we put on a conference that we're like, oh, let's just get 50 people in a room, and we sold 50 tickets in 5 days, and we doubled it to 100. And then this is the second annual International Food Blogger Conference.
That's awesome.
And we've got people coming in from all over the United States and Canada, including some amazing speakers from kind of old guard food media, and then lots of people who've built successful audiences just out of their kitchens. And it's kind of this intersection of food, writing, and technology, and photography. And so, again, but we had booked the space 6 months ago with you.
Yeah.
And so now...
It's so strange that I had received correspondence from you guys, hey, we're going to be in Seattle doing this thing, it'd be really fun.
Yeah.
And then the 1 week that we wanted to use the space is the same week you guys had
Exactly.
it. So basically we had a phone call a couple days ago and said, let's see if we can synergize.
Yeah.
Boop.
What time's the wedding?
It's Friday at 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
And so,
Might be okay.
it should be beautiful. And there's going to be the event on Friday is our wedding, and then as soon as the wedding's over, everyone leaves at midnight. We set this back up so that when they walk in here at 8 a.m. on Saturday morning, it looks exactly like they need it to look.
Yeah.
And then we're going to bring creativeLIVE into their domain and help share the story of their food photography people.
Sure. So it's quite exciting.
Well,
Yeah,
and there's one story, which is the chocolate story. Like all this happening in a chocolate factory.
Yeah, we just love that angle.
And there's
It's
such
big
a
part of
poetry
for
about
us.
that, and
Yeah.
we're really grateful. And
We like it too.
I know the story, but maybe so that we can have the folks at home hear about it. Like, give us the short version of Theo.
The very short story. I started the company 5 years ago after being a conservation volunteer a long time ago, seeing in Central America, seeing that social and environmental degradation were really business problems. And I brought in the best team, including Chuck and Deborah and Andy, and we're now the first and only organic fair trade chocolate maker in the whole country. We're trying to raise the bar for the chocolate business. Not, we give chocolate as love, as expression of love and to celebrate. And everybody that makes it, from the chocolate maker in our factory all the way down to the farmer in Madagascar, should be happy, healthy, and well, because they're making this beautiful thing that we all enjoy, and that's really our vision and our passion.
Well, I've been a huge fan ever since you guys first started. Thanks again
Great,
for letting us
thank
do
you.
this, you guys.
Yeah,
Really appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thank you
Yeah.
so much.
Great to meet you.
And, all right, thanks, guys.
All right.
Thank you
Good
See ya.
guys. Ciao.
Thanks.
I'm Daniela. Bella's
I'm
Signature
Laura.
Design.
Hi.
Bride.
Thank you for showing this to us.
We're really excited about this being a possibility for Laura's wedding. We've been looking at a few spaces and we have kind of some specific things in mind, but more than anything we wanted a raw space that we could work some magic on. And from what I've seen from pictures and what I've heard, that this might be the perfect space. So you looking at it, be really open-minded if you
Okay.
want raw, so that we can take it and turn it into your wedding versus some pre-existing space that already has a bunch of stuff in it that wouldn't be yours. So let's go check it out.
Okay.
Excited to finally see this in person.
Oh, wow.
It's a great raw space. It's big. I can see it's going to be full of light on a beautiful sunny day. And then having tables dispersed out here, maybe a little lounge area. Again, just crystal chandeliers hanging all over the place. Brick walls and all the window space. A big roll-up door that we could use as an entrance maybe and drape it off. Cobalt blue silk drapes, chandeliers hanging down, kind of framing the two of you.
Gorgeous.
This is great. Thank you so much. What I like about those long tables is that if you put them all together, instead of having them more like what you guys are doing, which is a different feeling, but for a wedding and a family-style wedding where you're serving all the food family-style, it's like almost like everyone's sitting at the same table, which is an incredible feeling. Whereas sometimes when you have all the rounds, it's like, well, there's a group here and there's a group here. So this way, if we do different configuration, everyone will be sitting at one or two tables because they're all connected, which is fabulous. Just have that juxtaposition of the raw space and the really beautiful, lush things that we've talked about, like the vintage chandeliers and beautiful draping. I think we'll have to bring in some lighting here because obviously there's not, but it looks like there is some stage lighting up there, which is great. One of the things you might not know is that there's this really great event in this space the next day, and they're doing some lighting and some decor. So if we can piggyback on that and all share, it's going to be even better.
Absolutely.
That's what I try to do sometimes at weddings anyway, is kind of share the resources. So I think this is going to be a real fun thing, and I think we're going to talk to them and see what kinds of things that they need for the next day. But for example, if they're going to bring in some lighting for the event, great. Well, let's do it for your event. Something like a parkan up there is really easy just to change out a color. So we could put in a cobalt blue gel, or there's really easy ways to make the events look very different using the same equipment.
Yeah.
Very
All about
good.
sharing.
Sharing is good.
It's her dorky comment.
I do usually let people talk and don't just talk the whole time.
Oh, thanks, Sky.
That's from Sky.
Yeah, just for me.
All right.
I'm blushing.
So that's the space.
That's the space.
Yeah. And so instead of just planning a wedding in 4 weeks, now you're planning and designing a wedding in 4 weeks that will transform into an international food bloggers location.
Yes, just bring it on. Add some more.
Which actually, you do more than weddings. You actually do events. So this
Correct.
actually segues nicely with kind of your own background.
Yes, it does.
All right.
Yes.
Cool. So folks, that is what you guys were up to this week, and I know you've got some other things to talk about. So I'm going to step out of the way and kind of let you get going here, and we'll see where it goes.
So one of the things, as I was talking about in the video, and like I said, I don't always just talk the whole time. Somehow the editing just, it's like, it's all about Daniela. I do try to get my bride's input. what I love about that space is that it is really raw. It's just some brick walls, a blank ceiling. There isn't anything really pre-existing. We could make that space really vintage, really, you know, crazy, really modern, whatever we wanted to. And so I feel a space like that really lends itself to finding out a lot about the bride and groom and bringing them into that space. And when people walk into the space, they're really going to feel like they're part of something of the bride and groom, and not just like, oh, well, this is another pretty summer wedding. We don't want it just to be another, you know, summer wedding. We want the guests to feel like they're really at Laura and Billy's wedding, and to feel that synergy, and to feel like this is really something that feels right with you. So, do you think that that's possible, seeing that space?
Absolutely, absolutely. As soon as I walked through the doors, I knew that you had taken exactly what we were asking for, and somehow miraculously found it in Seattle in a place that has never had a wedding at it before. So.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty lucky that that space came around, because I think, you know, we had looked at the new creativeLIVE studio, which is similar in feeling, not quite that much and not as big. And so when I saw this, I was just really excited, because it has almost everything we need. And, you know, it does have that challenge of working with an event that's, you know, 12 hours later. But we can do it.
Absolutely.
Think about having a wedding in a really unique location like that so many people are going to remember it forever, because it's not a typical wedding space. And so they're going to be walking through Fremont on a Saturday afternoon, and they're going to walk past Theo Chocolate, and they're always going to think, that's where I went to Laura and Billy's wedding, and it really makes it extra special. So it's pretty fun to get to do that.
I agree. Well, just think about every time someone has a piece of Theo's chocolate, they're going to be thinking of you two.
Absolutely.
That's sweet. Very true.
Oh, and I think that was one of the conditions of using the space, is that we have to use Theo's chocolate as well in the wedding.
That's
no
just terrible.
objections whatsoever. In fact, you can put it right on my plate.
There'll be a large table. Well, we had talked about that, hopefully. So one of the things in the space that we haven't quite decided what to do with yet is there's this big, giant piece of equipment in one corner. And it, you know, was obviously used for some sort of chocolate making, and it looks like this big vat. I imagine it filled with chocolate and kind of swimming inside myself. But so we haven't quite figured out, like, do we drape it off because it's this big bulky piece of equipment, or, you know, you had talked about, well, let's just leave it. Maybe we'll just light it up in cobalt blue, and, you know, maybe we'll do a dessert bar in front of it, and let that be like this whole, you know, part of the story. So there's some definite options, but we're definitely imagining a nice display of chocolate somewhere if we have that option. So once we kind of saw the space, and last week here on the show, we had talked a lot about colors. We had talked about 5 different color palettes, and, you know, Laura had kind of picked 2. She put it out there to her bridesmaids and some friends, and, you know, we've kind of come down to that decision of that beautiful, rich cobalt blue color, and some coppers, and maybe warm golds and metallics. And so once we had found the space, you know, that really got put into place as well, because those colors will just look fabulous in that space. There's so much brick, which is, you know, very rich and coppery in colors. That's just perfect. So I talked on the phone with our illustrator that works for me at Bella. Nadia Balk was here today, and so she came into the space and we started sketching. I can't draw to save my life. There's just something about 2-dimensionally that I cannot do. Give me something 3-dimensional, I can make any room look like anything, but on paper, no way. So I have beautiful Nadia here who makes the most amazing illustrations, and I can sketch something and talk about it, and she can put it in visual form so that my clients can actually see what it's going to look like, and it's just an amazing process. So we have her here today, and maybe we can go over colors and the overall design here on camera so you guys all can participate. And please feel free to ask questions.
Yeah.
So, do we see this image on screen? So we can go over that. Well, the challenge, I think, was really to find the right place for the altar. What is going to be that center? And we had this wonderful window, right?
Yeah, we had kind of looked around the space, and there was one part of the space that the brick had been colored cream, and so we thought, well, maybe that would be a good frame. We could frame that with fabric, but it just wasn't quite right. There wasn't quite the right, you know, where the aisle would run, and it wasn't quite perfect. We thought about maybe facing the big white doors, but again, or the stage, but we didn't necessarily, Laura and Billy didn't really want it to be about on a stage. And then we turned around, and there's this beautiful window there with a lot of brickwork, and we just thought, wow, that would be really fun, framing it in fabric, just like a window, but making it this beautiful centerpiece of the room and having everything focused on that.
So the challenge here was really, as I was putting it on paper, to make this center look like it is something nicely framed.
Right.
And I was thinking maybe we can play later on paper and maybe do some drawings over that, and maybe do something else. But I know that you work in 3D and you
Yes.
work in actual space, so that will probably be something to work with right there.
Well, yes and no, but I do like to,
Yeah.
I like to put things on paper. I like to be able to show the client, some different ideas, and to see if they like it before we get into the space. Because usually once we get into the space, I like to know what we're doing, to make sure I've ordered enough fabric. We always get them a little bit more anyway, but it's nice to have that framework. And if something doesn't work or doesn't look quite right or doesn't look like we had it on paper, then you play with it on site. But to have this, for what you've created, is just fabulous. So I'd love to see what Laura thinks of
I
the
love
sketch that we
it.
have.
I love it.
I really loved your idea of antique-looking chandeliers, different chandeliers. So we're going to have 3 or as many as we can have shapes that bring this character really to the set. I think this is a really great idea. So that also gives us this look. And also I like that this brick is becoming a part of this design as we are playing around it. And this window is right there. I think it's going to be a lot of fun to do this. Yeah, and then you were thinking, so we're doing some sort of decoration on the chairs. And Laura, you were saying you are not very much of a bows and girly, flowery.
Neither one of us, I don't think,
so
do
what
bows.
were you thinking? You were thinking a crystal balls or something like that.
Yeah, so when we were thinking, I always like to do something along the aisle, just to give it a little bit more something, so it's not just a bunch of chairs in a row. But like I said, I don't do bows, and I don't always like to do just big, heavy, swagged fabric, just because it's overdone. And so for some reason, the thing that popped into my head, probably because we were talking about crystal chandeliers, is having beautiful cobalt blue satin ribbon going down just the corners of the chairs, ending in a big, beautiful teardrop crystal. I just thought that would add a little bit of glitz and that blue satin color again and that richness of the satin. I'm really hoping that we can get Chavari chairs, which would look really pretty.
Gold
so
Chavari chairs.
if anyone has gold or dark brown Chavari chairs that they would like to see on camera and bring to this beautiful wedding, please feel free, because
Stellar Event Rentals, call me.
Yeah. So that's that's
Mm-hmm.
what I see in the space being absolutely amazing. I think a white folding chair just wouldn't look the same. So we're hoping that that's something that we can use.
Oh, what were you thinking about color palette? Because as I was drawing it, I was trying to avoid this kind of dark feeling. So I'm thinking, this is quite dark tone.
Yes.
Even though it's beautiful and rich, you are trying to space it out with some creamy tones.
Yeah, so we'll have, in addition to the cobalt and copper color, which are really our dark accent colors, we also want to bring in a gold, maybe even a little bit of yellow here if we need to, lighten it up. A lot of it depends on what that space looks like on a sunnier day. When we were there, it was like the gloomiest day in August that I've ever seen, so it was hard to see what it was going to feel like on what we hope is a sunny August day, 3 weeks from now. But yeah, I really like the richness of these colors, especially for an evening wedding. But it being August in Seattle, it won't get dark till 8:30 or so. So bringing that gold color in that you can see up on screen will really help. So again, dark brown Chavari chairs or gold Chavari chairs would be absolutely beautiful with the setting. And depending on how everything comes together, it'd be really fun to have a cobalt blue aisle runner, just again because it's unexpected. But if it ends up too much color, then we can go with something like an ivory. I think we were talking a little bit earlier, Laura, about cakes. I sent you a bunch of different cakes to kind of get an idea of what you like, and then to start kind of coming up with cake design based on that. And I think you liked a plain ivory cake, just very modern, very clean, little accents. And that's something that we might keep cream instead of trying to go crazy and do a cobalt blue cake. Maybe we'll keep the linens in the cobalt, maybe make some sort of beautiful copper stand, then just have this very classic but stunning, tall, clean, yummy tasting, cream colored cake.
The taste.
You also had an idea of white, probably flower arrangements.
Yes.
So I think that's what's gonna bring the light to it, right?
Exactly, because again, blue and copper don't really lend themselves to flowers very well because they refuse to dye flowers. And I'm sure that's not the look you would be going for anyway. And there's some, we don't do a lot of white flowers, but there's so many rich colors going on. So the idea of having, again, these beautiful chairs, long tables draped in a beautiful cobalt blue and just offset by these beautiful textured blooms, tightly packed, gardenias, hydrangea, roses, and just all in different shades of cream. So those shades kind of work with each other and can make each other glow, and all you see is just beautiful white texture, just yumminess. That's what I'm going for, and I think that would look really pretty. And I think it'll brighten it all up. So you get that, you get some lots of candlelight on the table. It's just going to be very, you know, classic, vintage yet modern, and all those things that we talked about.
Yes.
It sounds like those things don't fit together, but in my world they do. In my head they do.
Good.
You know, I love mixing modern with something more rustic and vintagey, and you know, that's ideally how I'd like my home to look too. So I think it's a lot of times, you know, I like mixing those what seems to be opposite things together. So. Any questions out there yet? Awesome. Great. Perfect.
The idea behind the simple color palette of the flowers, keeping it, you know, all sort of a one tone, but with the texture, and I think that will lend itself so well to complementing the texture of the brick walls and kind of a lot of the just interest that's going on in there without having so much going on with lots of different colors. Yeah, that you can't tell where to look. I think it's just going to be so kind of calming, but really rich as well because of the texture of it, and it'll all fit together so nicely.
Well, I think one of the things you mentioned early on to me is that you really like texture. And so one way to bring texture more into the forefront is to keep the color palette somewhat simple and to bring that texture in. And then you mentioned that your friend Olivia is a textile designer and that we might be able to bring that in through the invitations. And so then I really started playing with texture. I don't know if you can see it too well on the screen, but the blue fabric swatch that's there is a beautiful cobalt Dupioni silk, and that's what I would imagine using up around the window. And that to me, again, I love because it's just luminous. It has this amazing texture. When you put light on it, it just catches the light beautifully and has this beautiful sheen. So again, there's all these various textures layered upon each other, and I think that's what makes a room really, really rich without totally overpowering it. If we were to drape the entire room in that cobalt blue, it'd be a little much.
Yeah, I like just the added little punches of blue instead of doing like too much of it. Just keep with neutral and then just like have a few major things that are the big pops of color.
And just like you were saying with the texture, you know, having that Dupioni silk in the cobalt blue, and then maybe on the chairs having the, you know, the satin ribbon in the same blue. Like again, having those different textures in the kind of a simplified color palette that's not too many colors. It all just blends together so nicely.
Exactly.
Cool.
What are you thinking of this, again, color? You have 3 now silk, and how are you trying to put them in design?
Well, I think, like I said, so the blue, I see that the front, if you look at the drawing on your screen, I really like the Dupioni silk for the framing. If we need more blue, then I think the aisle runner would be really fun to do in blue. Perhaps we would do that in copper. There's a lot of copper in the room naturally because of the brickwork. So the other colors I just wanted to bring in when we need some richness, some warmth, because that blue color can be very cold if it's not done right. It is a nice, richer, warmer blue as far as blues go, but you were really drawn, Laura, to that brown sugar copper color, and so I wanted to make sure that we were including that, and you know, hopefully we can use that in the containers. I would love to find some beautiful copper, long, skinny containers. We're going to be using these long tables, as I was talking about in the video, to really create this family style atmosphere, the feeling of getting as many people as possible on 1 or 2 tables versus just having, you know, tables kind of broken up all over the place. So again, if we can have these long, thin tables with these long, just runners of flowers almost, so you look down the tables and you just see texture, color, candlelight, romance, that's kind of the look we're going for. So I'm pretty excited about it, as you can tell. I get really into the design part of it.
Good.
Yeah, so I think, you know, the next step now that we've kind of, if you can sign off like the design for the ceremony, then the next step will be for us to talk about the reception. We've talked already kind of about the table layout. I'm in the process of looking for our linens, you know, looking for the containers for the flowers. We'll be ordering the flowers this week. You know, you and I will start talking, Laura, about what you want that bouquet to look like. Again, I always feel like simple is almost better. For your bouquet, I would imagine lots of texture again, maybe something, you know, some sort of beautiful old antique brooch or something, but not to try to put some blue flower in there because our color palette, you know, is white and blue and gold. A lot of times I find brides thinking like, okay, we have this color palette, so in every element I have to have every piece of the color palette, and it just gets too much. So if, you know, if a bride has white and blue, they try to do a white and blue bouquet. You know, you can easily get away with having a beautiful cream bouquet with all sorts of different colors of cream and a beautiful blue satin ribbon versus trying to find little blue flowers to put in there. So that would be my goal, is to kind of find out from you what you like and then to create it and have it fit in with everything. with every element that we're going to be doing, whether it's the cake or the invitations, it's nice to try to fit everything in so it all feels like it's part of the same thing without being too matchy-matchy.
I'm not a matchy-matchy type person. If you were to walk through my house, you'd be like, whoa. Because my style is generally, I just find things that I like, and somehow they all kind of magically work together. Maybe I'm just imagining things, but I do a lot of like thrift store shopping and junking at estate sales, and so my taste is really eclectic anyway. Like my bridesmaids are all wearing different dresses that they find.
Do you want to show a couple of them that you found?
These are just some samples because my maid of honor, she just had a baby. So she can't exactly get out and shop, so I'm shopping for her, and these are just a couple.
Poor thing.
Yeah, I feel so bad about it. So these are just a few that I have. Can you all see that? Yeah, that I found at different places where I'll just tuck the tag in, where I'm shopping for her. So this is just sort of off-white with little gold touches and accents. And then this is another one that I found. And also, I don't know why I did this to my bridesmaids, but every store is switching over to fall colors now. And for some reason, gold is not a fall color this year. So they're having a really hard time finding things in this palette. But I have... I gave them sort of a broad, like you can pick long, short, sleeveless straps. I don't care what it looks like. I just want it to be in this warm toned color palette. Okay. So like this is brown, obviously, and gold, cream, brown sugar, bronze, any one of those. Woo, sorry. Any one of those colors really. But I spent like 4 hours at the mall the other day, and there are no stores that are carrying them right now. So I've been hitting like Goodwill and Value Village and just places like that because they don't care about seasons. So I've been, and unfortunately a lot of women don't keep their bridesmaids dresses after the wedding. So,
but see, now I could see these being something you'd wear anywhere, you know.
Yeah,
so these are lucky bridesmaids to be wearing something fun like this because it's not the same old. You know, you look at some dresses like, oh, it's a bridesmaid dress. I mean, it's obviously a bridesmaid dress, and they say they're going to wear it again, but they never do because it's just.
And that was the goal, because I have a whole closet full of them that I'm never going to wear again. So the goal was really to just have them pick something that they feel really great in, that's their style, that they could hopefully wear again, you know, if it's something that they feel good in and that they look good in. So.
To the readers in the chat room and everyone listening, if you have seen a really great find out there of a dress that's in the kind of gold, bronze, cream, you know, warm brown sugar color palette.
Yeah, let us know.
Let us know where it is.
I did stop at a few bridal stores, but it's, you know, if this is a good tip for planning a 4-week wedding. It's nearly impossible to find a bridesmaid dress that you can just buy off of the rack
in the right sizes and everything in 4 weeks.
And then they can't order them that quickly because they make them all to order. So
yes,
we're having to go the alternative route, but
which I think is more fun though too. I mean, not necessarily for you trying to do all these many things in 4 weeks, 3 weeks now, but I think it's going to end up representing your eclectic style, that all the girls will be in something they love. They're all going to be looking a little bit different. I think the pictures will be that much more phenomenal. I'm kind of over the whole everyone looks the same and then there's the bride and the, you know, cream dress. Like I like the idea of that tonal color palette, but everyone's a little bit different, and then they all feel more comfortable. They look happier. The event's happier.
Yeah.
The important thing is if that's, you know, your style and that really represents you, when people look at that whole wedding party together up there at the altar or in those photos, it's going to feel more like, you know, what you would choose, what you would have in your life, in your home, that sort of thing. It'll represent you and Billy so much better.
I think I first saw that style, if I can say this, I think I first saw that on Jessica Claire's, in her wedding, because each one of her bridesmaids, they weren't even in it, they were just in sort of like fall jewel tone color palette, but every single one of them was wearing something that they felt phenomenal in, and you could tell from the pictures. They all, you could say like, this person is uber fashionista and this person is a little bit more reserved and modest, or whatever it was, you know, but you looked at them and you really saw their personality come through in what they chose to wear on her wedding day.
The internet has a question.
The internet.
The internet, the broad internet. Kim's Imagery, that's her username in the chat room, wants to know if the color of the bride's dress has been selected yet. Is it white, ivory?
I had my dress.
Yay.
I know. And I love it. The first dress, when I put it on, I was like, this is my dress. Done. We can stop looking now. And I've tried on a lot of dresses. So it is diamond white. It's their company's ivory. So whatever.
It's a nice warm hue.
Yeah,
No,
it's not white. It is off-white to some degree.
Slightly off-white. Okay,
Yes.
great. And also, in regards to, you mentioned in the photos and whatnot, Firefly Photo is asking, does the designer take into consideration the photographer and their needs when they're designing the wedding decorations?
Yes and no. Definitely, we try to make everything photo friendly. So one of the reasons why the cream flowers, for example, also work really well in that space is because there's not going to be a ton of light in that space. We're going to have these great chandeliers, but there's a little bit of stage lighting, but not a lot. So in the evening, that room's going to get pretty dark. If we had dark flowers, they wouldn't show up. It would be really hard for that photographer to get, shots. If we had, for example, like deep purple flowers, it would be really hard to see those. And so another reason for using something like cream flowers is because they're really going to pop off the table. The whole picture composition, at least in my head, for what I see visually, is going to come together better on film. And again, when we're doing this visually, when I'm designing it, I'm trying to always keep that composition in my head so that, I kind of see everything I'm doing as a photo. So what is that photo going to look like? What's this going to look like? And so, even though I'm not saying, oh, I'm going to design this so it looks great in pictures, in one way I am. I'm trying to, make the bride happy, make all the guests feel comfortable, create an environment, and make sure that it has the ability to look really good on film. Because if it doesn't, if it looks crappy on film, then what's the point?
Well, also, in that vein, a couple of the photographers have asked, does it make it, if all the bridesmaids have different dresses, does it make it harder for the bride to stand out in the photos?
I don't think so. I mean, the bride, unless everyone's in different colors, if the bride was wearing red and someone's wearing green and someone's wearing blue, then definitely. But she's going to have the big dress. She's going to, she's going to look like a bride. She's going to be wearing a gown. She's not wearing a little cocktail dress or, And I think with her wearing ivory and all the other colors, even if it's ivory with some flecks of gold or whatever, I definitely think she's going to stand out. She's going to be radiating love and happiness, and she's definitely going to stand out.
There's something as well I have to say of all the brides I've seen and photographed over the years. It is like magic. Something happens on the wedding day, no matter who the woman is, no matter if this is her thing and if she ever thought she would be a bride in her life. You get her on that wedding day in the dress with the hair and makeup, with all the accessories, and not just that, but the excitement and the love surrounding them. Every bride I've ever seen just beams like you cannot believe, and so there's no mistaking who the bride is on a wedding day. No matter what anyone's wearing, it's her, and she just radiates. It's amazing.
I agree.
We have another question from Abby Lynn. Is there a timeline set up for the process of the entire wedding yet?
We're still working on that. Jasmine and I are working on talking. Usually what I do, and we talked about this a little bit in the last show, I kind of work backwards. And so I try to find out from the major vendors like the photographer, what do they need? How much time do they need for getting room shots, for getting family shots? Are the bride and groom willing to see each other beforehand so we can get those shots out of the way? Most times now, and thank you, that Billy and Laura do, are willing to see each other before the ceremony. We still once in a while get brides and grooms that don't want to see each other. So that's a little bit harder with the timeline because then we have to do all those bride and groom shots and family shots after the ceremony, which means they're missing, a lot of the cocktail hour and part of the reception, perhaps, depending on how much time the photographer wants. So in this case, it'll be nice and easy. But that's kind of how we work. So kind of building backwards, how much time do we need for these photos, and then working how much time does she need for hair, how much for makeup, how much time to get dressed, building some buffers in between there. So that's kind of what we're working on. We're still trying to figure out exact ceremony time, which I think we've decided is 5. How late can we go in that space? Again, finding the venue had a lot to do with it because we didn't know whatever space we ended up with.
We would have.
Yeah, how long can we go? Can we go till 3 in the morning, or do we have to end at 10? So again, you work backwards.
Right. So there's a comment in the chat room I thought I would read out. It's nice. No. It's nice seeing the entire process being discussed. Sometimes as photographers, we're not privy to that information, but it can help better relate to the clients for their overall experience.
Oh, that's good. That's good to know.
This is this seems to be working for the photographers.
Fabulous.
And we had another question, another comment from the chat room that Chris says she thinks that if you have different dresses on the wedding party, that it can add texture and interest.
Absolutely, and
to the
that's
photography.
definitely a major decision. Part of that decision that I made was that I wanted that sort of eclectic feel and different textures, and
as long as they're in coordinating colors.
well, yeah, and they're not all in the same color. It's not like I said you all have to find a gold dress. I just said, here's your palette. Go take and run with it.
And it's important to have those limitations so someone doesn't show up in like Barney purple.
Yes. And there are a few of my bridesmaids, if you're watching out there. I
We
got
will
my eye on
veto.
you. Yeah, exactly.
I will have an
veto
emergency
power.
dress that's big enough to fit anyone.
And I would have to say, having different gowns from a personal, potential participant standpoint, is that it, not everybody looks the same. Not everybody looks good in the same dress. And if they can bring their own style and get something that really looks good for them,
My
it can
girls
really
are
help.
all completely different too. I mean, they're all shapes and sizes and heights and
skin tones.
Skin tones are all different. And so for me, it was an easy choice to just say, pick whatever you want. You're not all going to fit into the same genre anyway.
And I think you get more confident participants,
Absolutely.
happier participants with better looking outlook in photos. So, yeah.
And I think, too, like everything, I don't know, I did a wedding a few weeks ago, and the bride had clearly chosen shoes for all the bridesmaids that they all matched, and you could tell a few of the bridesmaids were uncomfortable in the shoes. Not because they were heeled, in fact they were flat, but some of those bridesmaids weren't used to wearing flats, and you could tell they just didn't feel as, wearing these flat shoes with this, pretty stylish dress, but, I think she just, found these shoes that they were exact right hue, and so she bought them for all her bridesmaids, which was great, and I'm sure the pictures looked great, but you could tell some of them were, like, just not as comfortable. So I think giving your girls that are there to support you, supporting them, and giving them a choice, fabulous.
All right, so we have another question from the chat room. Does the bride, who this person understands is also a photographer, feel like the whole experience will change the way that she relates to her own clients during initial consultations, and if so, how?
Yeah.
That's a very good question. In fact, I think from the very beginning of my business, I felt like I was just, because I hadn't been married or engaged, I was just on a different I looked at it differently. And as soon as I got engaged, it changed for me. I just could relate easier to my clients. I'm not saying that not being engaged made me a worse photographer, but it definitely makes it easier to be on the same level with them. And going through the process, I have so much more respect for my clients that plan their own weddings. I mean, from the very beginning, I was like, oh my God, how do these girls do this? How are they not all crazy? Because it's really hard. It's really hard to make decisions and to commit to everything along the way. And yeah, definitely.
Well, as a photographer, are you planning on taking any photos of your own wedding?
No.
Good for you.
No, and actually this is a totally different situation now, but when I first started planning my wedding, photography is clearly something that's really important to me, and it's the only tangible item I'm going to have after my wedding day. So I made a very conscious decision at the beginning to research photographers whose work I respected, but that weren't friends of mine or people that I knew, because I wanted that professional separation between me and my photographer. So, yeah. I will not be taking pictures on my wedding day.
Excellent. I think you're going to have enough to do.
I think there's going to be enough coverage.
Yeah, you think? No detail will be missed.
Exactly.
Which might be good or bad, right?
I do have a camera that I'm going to give to a friend of mine, though, who's going to be there to shoot some film, because I wanted that.
It seems we're winding down on questions. If there's any other questions out there, you may have a few minutes to get some in. Well, here's a question. Do you have anything going on, any decisions being made about the groom and groomsmen attire yet?
Billy was just a groomsman in a wedding a couple weeks ago, so he has a fabulous suit that he just bought for that. So he'll probably be wearing that. I've kind of just let him sort of do the same thing with his groomsmen, is just say, just wear a black or a charcoal suit, and then we were going to just buy different ties for them from this great website called Tie Bar.
And again, with the same color palette, same warm.
Awesome silk ties that you can just buy in all different colors. So
very cool. I always love that eclectic but pulled together look, so that the groomsmen again feel pulled into the whole environment.
Laura, Chris would like to know, who did you research and what were some of your favorite
Name dropping. Name dropping. Okay, so I got really, really, really close, like probably a week away from sending my photographer her check. And then we entered this contest, and I'm sure she was like, "Where's the check? Where's the check?"
Oh
no! But the girl that I was going to hire, her name is Brett Cole, and she is married to a friend of mine. I went to Brooks, and she's married to a friend of mine from school, so we kind of knew each other, but not. And she used to work for a photographer. You might not know him, but his name is Jose Villa. She used to work for him, and so she was going to be our photographer. She shoots film, so I was researching film photographers and digital photographers. And the digital photographer, we were kind of between her and the digital photographer, Jamie Delane from Vancouver, BC.
Okay. Actually, here's another question, this time for Daniela. Do wedding designers also work in other capacities, such as interior decorators or whatnot? Or do they and you mostly handle weddings?
Oh, it really depends on, I'm not going to speak for any other designers because who knows what areas they branch off into. For me, I don't really do any interior design, although once in a while I'll work with clients on specific things. So I'll have clients that I've done a wedding for, and then I'll do other, life events for. So special, parties in their home, and then they might be redoing their house and ask color palette questions, want me to help source some vases or some containers. And so a lot of the couples that I work with that I start with at their wedding, I'll end up doing all their life events and doing little bits and pieces. And that's how I prefer to work. Like I want to be, that couple's designer for life.
Right. Have you done photography in the past?
No.
Or am I making that up? I
You're
totally made that up. Sorry.
No, I do. I do always bring my camera, and I love to kind of capture things from my, I see things in pictures, and so I can see something, and I can see exactly how I would like that photo to look. That I want that boutonniere, really sharp, and I want the background blurred just so, but I do not have the technical capability to do that. So thank goodness that for this particular event we have amazing Jasmine. I've worked with some amazing photographers around Seattle that know what they're doing and that take all the beautiful things that I do and capture them forever, and I'm grateful for that.
Great. Well, I think we're winding down, and it's getting close to a good time to wrap up. So I just want to mention that we are looking for, since we have that really, really quick turnaround between wedding and another event the next day, we are looking for some assistants who might be able to work overnight, helping to turn over the room for another purpose. So please contact us where? 4-week wedding. That's 4 with a number 4. 4-week wedding at creativelive.com.
Yay! Thank you.
And actually, beyond just the teardown, you don't have to make the camera all the way back to get me. So in addition to the teardown, we actually could use all variety of volunteers for the setup and teardown of this event. And we haven't really got to that part in the logistics yet,
right,
Danielle, but since we've got people's ear, and there are people already sending us their contact information because they want to be involved in this in Seattle, maybe you could describe a little bit about what you think we're going to need in terms of just help on the ground.
Sure. Well, we'll be basically, since we're working around this other event that's happening the very next day, they're actually going to come in a few days before, set the room how they need it. We're going to see what that looks like. Then we're going to come and tear it all apart and do our stuff. And so we'll need help for that. We're going to be rearranging tables, setting linens, doing the not so exciting part of steaming the linens. I just insist on always steaming linens because they have to be perfect. The way they come from the rental company is all creased and wrinkly, and that just doesn't work. So, those things like that. We're going to be hanging chandeliers from the ceiling. So if there's people who aren't afraid of heights, fabulous. I don't get up on ladders anymore. All sorts of fun things. campus. And so they get to be part of that process of seeing, taking this really, really raw space that looks like nothing into this beautiful, lush atmosphere that represents two people that are madly in love. So that's a really exciting thing to be a part of. And then at the end of that night, we kind of take everything down. We'll leave the chandeliers up because I think the Foodista people are really excited to actually use some of our decor as well, which will be fun. But we'll be turning some of those tables around into the way that they want it set. And it's just a really neat process to see, everything from, here's the sketches, here's the empty space, and we're going to come and create this. And I think it'll be fun for people to be part of. I'll be there directing everything, so you have to have no experience, just excitement and passion and willingness to help.
How many, Craig says, how many people would you like?
How many people? I'd like 10 people, please.
Muscles.
Yeah. Right, muscles are good. Fear of heights. No, not fear of heights. Thank you.
Lack of fear of heights.
Yeah.
Anything else you guys are still looking for, hoping for, that
that we need to put an appeal
put it out there in the world?
Oh my gosh, what are we not looking for? Hoping for?
Yeah. Well, again, chairs. If anyone wants to give us chairs or help with chairs, if anyone wants to feature the beautiful chairs on this fabulous creative process that we're doing, that would be great. And I think, we were still looking for some services like teeth bleaching, and that's just something although you have beautiful white teeth, so I don't know what to worry about, but that's something that we had talked about at one point. I think hopefully Theo Chocolates will be involved in favors, but we're going to need them probably maybe packaged, or maybe they'll come packaged, but we'll want to put our own spin on it and put maybe a blue ribbon on it, so that kind of stuff, labor to help do that kind of stuff. And I think we've had some great people reach out and say, hey, I do custom jewelry, you want to come down and check it out? Yeah, let us know if there's something that you have that you want to see featured. I'm sure we could find a way to get it in there.
In front of how many people?
A huge
50,000,
worldwide,
100,000?
yeah.
We need catering, don't we?
We're still working on catering, yep.
Huge live audience plus Junebug.
Lots of features on Junebug. We're doing blog posts every week leading up to the wedding, kind of following along these live broadcasts, showing images and showing the progression of the wedding planning. And then after the wedding, we'll be getting to run all the photos from Jasmine and showing the full real wedding. So we'll definitely be giving lots and lots of coverage to all the different participants. And then, of course, the creativeLIVE classroom is just going to be astounding, I think.
Yeah. So I think that big Seattle audience that, and the national audience that follows Junebug, all the national audience that follows Jasmine Star, and the creativeLIVE viewers, I think it's just going to be huge exposure. So catering is probably the biggest piece that we haven't nailed down yet. We have a few feelers out. Some people have said, yeah, we'd like to be a part of this, but again, we want to do this great family-style dinner. Bring it on. Let us know if you're interested.
And I also wanted to say that we'll be mentioning who's participating during the workshop. Who's participating in our course, who's providing what, and we'll also be we'll have chat hosts who are putting that information into the chat room, and we'll also be tweeting out some of these either during the event or at the end at the closing credits.
Fabulous. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Yeah.